The dense forest stretched endlessly before them, its towering trees cloaked in a thick mist that softened the edges of reality. Mia and Sam had always loved adventure, but today's family camping trip was supposed to be simple, a chance to escape the noise of the city and reconnect with nature. The siblings wandered deeper into the woods, giggling as they chased after a curious squirrel darting between the trees. But their laughter was cut short when the sky above darkened suddenly, heavy clouds swallowing the sunlight whole. Thunder cracked like a whip, startling them both, and rain began to fall in icy sheets, drenching everything within moments. Visibility dropped almost instantly, the once clear path now a blur of shadows and dripping leaves. Panic bubbled up in Mia's chest as she realized they were lost. "We need to go back," she shouted over the storm, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound calm. She grabbed Sam's hand tightly, pulling him closer as they turned in circles, searching for any sign of familiarity. But no matter which way they went, the towering trees seemed to close in around them, mocking their confusion. Night fell swiftly, wrapping the forest in an impenetrable blackness that made every shadow feel alive. Fear gripped Mia like a vice, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure even Sam could hear it. She glanced down at her little brother, his wide eyes reflecting both terror and trust. He didn't cry or complain, but the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. What if something happens to him? She thought, guilt twisting in her gut. At school, kids often teased her for being too cautious, for hesitating when others charged ahead without fear. Now, here she was, stranded in the wilderness, doubting every decision before she even made it. But beneath her self-doubt lay a fierce determination to protect Sam, no matter what. She forced herself to take a deep breath, squaring her small frame against the storm. "Stay close to me, okay?" she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Sam nodded, squeezing her hand in return. Together they stumbled forward, guided only by instinct and the faint hope that somewhere beyond the endless trees, their parents were searching for them. As lightning split the sky, illuminating gnarled roots and jagged rocks, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was alive, and it wasn't letting them leave. Yet, even in the midst of her fear, a spark of resolve ignited within her. If anyone could get them through this, it was her. For Sam, she would find a way. The forest seemed to breathe around them, its towering trees swaying ominously in the wind. Every step Mia and Sam took sank into the mud-soaked trails, their shoes squelching with each heavy movement. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the dampness clung to their skin like an unwelcome embrace. Towering pines creaked above them, their branches clawing at the dark sky as if trying to escape the earth itself. Shadows danced unnaturally in the dim light, shifting shapes that made Mia's heart race faster than the storm had. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, echoed unnaturally, as though the woods were alive and watching. Just as despair began to settle over them like a suffocating fog, a faint flicker of light caught Mia's eye. It hovered far ahead, barely visible through the curtain of mist, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. "Sam, look," she whispered, her voice tinged with cautious hope. Her brother perked up instantly, his tired face lighting up with excitement. "Do you think it's Mom and Dad?" he asked, clutching her hand tighter. Before she could answer, the light wavered, then vanished altogether, leaving only darkness behind. For a moment they stood frozen, staring into the void where it had been. Was it real? Or was it just another cruel trick played by their exhausted minds? Exhaustion weighed heavily on their small frames, each step feeling harder than the last. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, sharp and insistent, while the cold seeped deeper into their bones with every passing minute. The stakes felt higher now. Not just lost, they were beginning to feel truly vulnerable. Wild animals could be lurking anywhere, their glowing eyes hidden in the shadows. Hypothermia loomed like a silent predator, waiting for them to falter. But worse than the physical dangers was the emotional toll. Fear of abandonment crept into Mia's thoughts, whispering doubts she couldn't silence. What if no one found them? What if this endless forest swallowed them whole? Despite the creeping dread, Mia forced herself to focus. She couldn't let fear take control, not when Sam was counting on her. "We'll keep going," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the oppressive quiet. "If we see that light again, we'll follow it. But we stick together no matter what." Sam nodded, his trust in her unshaken despite the terror etched across his face. Together they pressed onward, their footsteps slow but steady, clinging to the fragile hope that somewhere beyond the darkness, there was still a way out. After what felt like hours of trudging through the unforgiving forest, their weary legs trembling with every step, Mia and Sam stumbled upon something that made their breath catch in unison. Nestled between two ancient, gnarled trees stood a small, weathered cabin. Its wooden walls were cracked and splintered, moss creeping up its sides like ivy claiming an old ruin. Yet, despite its decrepit exterior, warm light spilled from the windows, glowing softly against the oppressive darkness of the woods. It was as if the cabin had been waiting for them all along, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Mia hesitated, her heart pounding not just from exhaustion but from the weight of the decision before her. The light was inviting, too inviting, but her mind raced with questions. Who lived here? What if it wasn't safe? What if someone dangerous was inside, watching them right now? But even as these thoughts swirled in her head, she knew the alternative was worse. Staying out in the cold, wet wilderness meant risking hypothermia or worse. She glanced down at Sam, whose wide eyes reflected only trust and relief. "Do you think we should go in?" he asked innocently, his voice barely above a whisper. Sam's unwavering faith in her tugged at Mia's heart, but it also deepened her internal conflict. How could she protect him if she didn't even know what lay beyond that door? Her hands trembled as she tightened her grip on his. I don't know," she admitted, hating how uncertain she sounded. "What if it's not safe? What if?" Her words trailed off as another gust of wind cut through the trees, sending a shiver down her spine. Sam looked up at her, his face pale but resolute. "But what if it is safe?" he countered softly. "You always tell me to be brave, right?" His simple words struck a chord within her, stirring something buried beneath her fear. He was right. She had always told him to be brave, to face challenges head-on. And yet, here she was, frozen by doubt. Taking a shaky breath, Mia forced herself to nod. "Okay," she said, more to herself than to him. "We'll check it out. But stay close to me no matter what." With Sam's hand firmly in hers, they approached the cabin, each step heavy with both hope and trepidation. The warmth emanating from the window seemed almost too good to be true, a stark contrast to the hostility of the forest, but Mia couldn't ignore the pull of its promise. Shelter, safety, and maybe even answers. The moment they stepped inside, the cabin seemed to wrap them in an embrace of warmth that was almost too perfect. A fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls, and a small table held plates of bread, cheese, and apples. Simple but nourishing food left out as though someone had anticipated their arrival. Blankets were neatly folded on a wooden bench near the door, still warm from recent use. For the first time since the storm hit, Mia felt her muscles relax, if only slightly. "We can rest here for a bit," she said, trying to sound calm for Sam's sake, though her eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign of who might live here. But the longer they stayed, the more unsettling details began to surface. Strange symbols were carved into the furniture, swirling patterns that looked ancient and unfamiliar, etched deep into the wood with deliberate care. They adorned the edges of the table, the legs of chairs, even the frame of a large mirror hanging on one wall. The markings weren't threatening exactly, but they carried an air of mystery that made Mia uneasy. "What do you think these mean?" Sam asked, tracing one of the symbols with his finger. His curiosity was innocent, but it only heightened Mia's growing sense of unease. Why would someone go through so much effort to decorate a cabin like this? And where was the person who lived here? Their exploration led them to a dusty bookshelf tucked into a corner of the room. Among the scattered books and trinkets, they found something far more startling: old photographs. Each picture featured children of varying ages, standing in front of the very same cabin. What chilled Mia to the bone was how eerily similar some of those faces were to hers and Sam's. In one photograph, a girl with braided hair and wide eyes bore an uncanny resemblance to Mia herself. On the back of the photo, written in faded ink, were the words, "Asterisk for those who need shelter most." Asterisk. Her stomach twisted as she turned the image over again, staring at the cryptic message. Was this place meant to help them or trap them? Tension coiled tightly in Mia's chest as fear and doubt warred within her. Were they guests in this strange haven, or prisoners? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. If someone had gone to such lengths to prepare this place, why weren't they here now? And what did these symbols and photos signify? Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to take Sam and run back into the forest no matter how dangerous it might be. But the storm outside raged on, relentless and unforgiving, and Sam was already curled up under one of the blankets, his eyelids drooping with exhaustion. She couldn't drag him back out there, not yet. Mia clenched her fists, forcing herself to focus. Protecting Sam meant making hard choices, even when every option felt wrong. This discovery forced her to confront her deepest fears. What if she failed him? What if trusting this place put them in greater danger? The stakes felt higher than ever, pressing down on her like the weight of the forest itself. Yet, amid the rising panic, a small voice inside reminded her of why she had come this far, for Sam. No matter how scared she was, she had to keep moving forward, one step at a time. Just as Mia was trying to make sense of the photographs and symbols, Sam's curiosity got the better of him. While exploring near the fireplace, he leaned against a loose stone in the wall, triggering a soft click. A section of the wooden paneling slid open, revealing a hidden compartment, a small, dimly lit room lined with shelves filled with leather-bound journals. The sudden discovery startled them both, but it was Mia who felt the full weight of responsibility crash down on her shoulders. "Sam, be careful," she snapped, her voice sharp with panic. She immediately regretted her tone when she saw his hurt expression, but the guilt inside her burned hotter. "This is my fault," she thought bitterly. "I brought us here, into this strange, dangerous place." Determined to understand what they had stumbled upon, Mia picked up one of the journals, its cover worn and cracked with age. As she flipped through the pages, she found handwritten accounts from people who had once sought refuge in the cabin, stories of survival, hope, and resilience. One entry described a boy not much older than her who had been separated from his family during a blizzard. Another told of a young girl who braved hunger and fear to protect her little brother. Each story was different, yet they all shared common threads. Courage in the face of despair, kindness extended even in the darkest moments, and an unyielding determination to survive. Slowly, Mia began to feel something shift inside her, a spark of inspiration igniting where there had only been fear before. These strangers weren't so different from her. They had faced impossible odds and found strength they didn't know they had. As she read aloud snippets of the stories to Sam, his eyes lit up with wonder. "They were brave just like you," he said earnestly, his earlier hurt forgotten. His words struck a chord deep within her, forcing her to confront the truth. Bravery wasn't about never being afraid. It was about moving forward despite the fear. For the first time since they'd entered the forest, Mia allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could get through this too. The realization lightened the heavy burden she'd been carrying, replacing it with a fragile but growing sense of hope. In the midst of their predicament, laughter bubbled unexpectedly between them. As they pored over the journals, Sam pointed out silly doodles someone had drawn in the margins. One depicted a stick figure wrestling what looked like a giant squirrel. "Maybe that's what we'll have to do next," he joked, pretending to wrestle an imaginary creature. Mia couldn't help but laugh, the sound echoing warmly in the cozy cabin. For a brief moment, the storm outside and the mysteries surrounding them faded away, leaving only the bond between siblings, the kind of connection that could weather any storm. It reminded her of simpler times back home, playing board games or telling ridiculous jokes at dinner. In that shared laughter, Mia found renewed strength. No matter how dire things seemed, they still had each other, and that was enough to keep going. As Mia and Sam sat together on the cabin floor, still marveling over the journals, a soft creak echoed from behind them. They turned sharply to see an elderly woman standing in the doorway, her presence both unexpected and calming. Her silver hair was tied back neatly, and her warm eyes sparkled with kindness despite the deep lines etched into her face by years of life's trials. "I wondered when you'd find this place," she said gently, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen much but lost none of her compassion. She introduced herself as Eleanor, the guardian of the cabin, explaining that it wasn't just a shelter, it was a refuge for those in need, guided there by fate. Eleanor's words unraveled the mystery piece by piece. The symbols carved into the furniture weren't meant to frighten. They were ancient marks of protection, designed to offer solace to weary travelers. The photographs, those were reminders of all the children and families who had found hope within these walls. "This cabin has always been here for those who need it most," Eleanor explained, her tone steady and reassuring. "It calls out to people when they're lost, not just in the woods but in their hearts." As she spoke, Mia felt the tension in her chest begin to ease. This place wasn't a trap, it was a gift, a lifeline thrown to them when they needed it most. With Eleanor's help, they contacted their frantic parents, who had been searching tirelessly since the storm began. Hearing their mother's tearful voice on the other end of the line brought a wave of relief so powerful that Mia nearly collapsed under its weight. Knowing they would soon be reunited lifted a burden neither sibling realized they'd been carrying. Before they left, Eleanor handed Mia a small locket, its surface engraved with the words, "Courage isn't absence of fear, it's moving forward anyway." The message resonated deeply, echoing everything Mia had learned during their ordeal. It wasn't about being fearless. It was about choosing to act despite the fear, about protecting those you love even when doubt threatened to overwhelm you. As they prepared to leave the cabin, Eleanor gave them one final piece of advice. "Remember, no matter how dark things seem, there is always light waiting if you keep looking for it. And sometimes that light comes from the people around you." Her kindness shone through every word, reinforcing the themes of hope, resilience, and community. The storm outside had calmed, leaving the forest glistening with dewy sunlight breaking through the trees. For the first time since their journey began, Mia felt truly safe, and not because of the cabin or Eleanor, but because of the strength she now knew she carried within herself. Together, hand in hand, she and Sam stepped out into the fresh morning air, ready to face whatever came next. Back home, the familiar comfort of their cozy living room felt almost surreal after the chaos of the forest. The storm that had once seemed so insurmountable was now just a memory, retold in hushed tones during family dinners. Mia sat cross-legged on the floor, helping Sam pack away their camping gear. Each item, the flashlight, the tattered map, even the mud-streaked boots, carried echoes of their adventure. But instead of fear or regret, Mia felt something new. Pride. She had faced her doubts head-on and emerged stronger, not just for herself but for Sam. The experience had transformed her, teaching her that bravery wasn't about never being afraid. It was about finding the strength to move forward anyway. As sunlight streamed through the window, catching the small locket Eleanor had given her, Mia paused. The delicate chain shimmered softly, the engraved words glinting in the light. "Courage isn't absence of fear, it's moving forward anyway." It was as if the locket itself carried a piece of the cabin's magic, a tangible reminder of the lessons she'd learned. She held it up, watching the way the sunlight danced across its surface, and smiled. That tiny object symbolized more than just an extraordinary journey. It represented growth, resilience, and the unshakable bond between her and Sam. Sam noticed her staring at the locket and grinned mischievously. "You're braver than any superhero," he declared, his voice full of admiration. Mia laughed, ruffling his hair affectionately. For the first time, she didn't brush off the compliment or second-guess it. She knew now what he already did. That courage came in many forms, and hers lay in protecting those she loved, no matter the odds. Their sibling bond had been tested in the wilderness, but it had only grown stronger, forged by shared fear, laughter, and triumph. Mia glanced out the window at the calm blue sky, a stark contrast to the stormy night that had changed everything. Life, she realized, was unpredictable. Storms could come without warning, shaking your world to its core. But within those storms were opportunities to grow, to find shelter in unexpected places, and to lean on the people who mattered most. With courage, compassion, and trust in others, even the darkest moments could lead to brighter days. As she tucked the locket safely into her pocket, Mia felt ready, not just for the next adventure, but for whatever challenges life might throw her way. And she knew deep down that she wouldn't face them alone.